gather here today to give thanks for the life of a well-loved teacher, a colleague, a friend, a husband, and a father who shared his life with us here on campus. It is in this memory that we gather, and it is for this life that we are most thankful.
And so we know there is Paul now, with the other family members and friends who have gone on before. He's filled with life, filled with laughter, and in the arms of the one who can make all things new again.
When I came here, I was just another car guy. I like cars, and so I got to talk to Paul, and frankly, I got to know his students better than I know most other students, from hanging around there and taking my car in when they were doing those days where they work on people's cars. And he was just kind of, obviously you all know this, kind of a quiet and humble guy, but someone who instantly made you feel like you were a friend. What's most important to me is that as I talk to students about this guy, they had an incredible impact on him. He is the kind of faculty member that we just love to have at a university. You wish everybody could be like that, that everybody could have that genuine character, genuine feel about his students, and that whether they succeeded in that course wasn't the most important thing, but whether they succeeded in life was. And that he really reached out to students. They knew it, they felt it, they cared about him, and they, like all of us, are going to miss him.
Hello, I knew Paul for about 2 years. I had a few classes with him. I'd say one of the greatest things about Paul is that he was a professor that would challenge you, but in a good way, in a way that you wanted to learn. He gave you a hunger to learn, and a few things he taught me, taking one of the hardest courses I think in the university, intellectual, and making it understanding to me and other students that had problems. You could go to Paul's office at any time, and you go in, there's papers everywhere, but yeah, you could ask him anything, he could find it for you. He taught me how to let the smoke out of my DVOM. But one thing about Paul is I don't think, we'll obviously get a new professor to fill his classes, but I don't think there's going to be another teacher like Paul around. And one thing I appreciated from him is how he challenged me personally, but I really missed him.
Paul's been a great father figure for me because none of my family kind of really believes in God, and so he's been a really great father to me. And so whenever I was going through something, I'd always come and I'd talk to Paul, really on a personal level, and he'd just sit there and he'd just encourage me, and he'd kind of, he just, hey, words of comfort, words of encouragement, and hey, you can do this. And the neatest thing was that he just always loved God with all his heart and soul, and he glorified him in everything he did. And he always just gave his all for every single one of us students. Many of us can relate, even the ones that aren't talking now. Like, I know that we've got nothing but heart for Paul because he had nothing but heart for us. He's one of those teachers that really, he didn't just care about that grade, and he didn't just care about you're just another face, you're just another number. He really cared about the person and the soul behind that person. So it's just something really neat, and he's just a great guy. And so I encourage you guys, he lives on through each and every one of us, and so the things that he's instilled in us lives in you, and that you can share the rest of the world. You can share Paul's testimony with the rest of the world by the way that you live and you act every day. So
I came to the university and was able to work with Paul for 8 years. And I think one of the biggest things I always enjoyed doing was walking into his room and saying, how do I do this? Who do I contact about this? And he always had an answer. I think the biggest part, and he got the biggest kick out of, was when I'd walk in, knock on the door, and say, hey, can you come help us in breaks? We just screwed something up. And he knew how to do it. And most of the things he knew how to do, he didn't learn from a textbook. He did it by doing it. And it was then that I became the student and he became the instructor and a good friend. Even though we're early into the semester, I still miss that today. One of the biggest compliments the students gave me was Paul always told me that I needed to button up my test. I needed to make them harder. I needed to make them more challenging. And one of the biggest compliments the students gave me when they walk out of the class and say, "Dang, Cap, that's almost like Paul's test."
And he asked me, "So what are you going to do, Anton? You're just about out here." I told him, "Well, Paul, I'm one of the students that's been here 4 years, and I still don't have a set plan. However, I know that eventually I want to teach. Eventually I idolize you, I idolize Mr. Darby and Ms. Rao, and this is what I want to do eventually." So he sat there and he listened, he waited a second, and he said, "Go for it." He said, "Because you never know. None of us are here forever." And 2 weeks before school, I got the call from David Arrington, and he said, "Give me the news." And I couldn't believe it at first. I'm like everybody else. I'm like, "You're kidding me. It must have been something." It's greatly saddened at that moment that Paul talked about came too soon. Myself, along with many of his friends and family, all the people in the university that knew him, all the members of the AIM major, all the faculty that knew him, we all lost a wonderful friend, a wonderful teacher, and for many of us, a very stellar mentor. He was always there. If you had a question, you could call him up. He used to stay till about 10:30 at night. I know there's times I called him. I was working on car lips later than that. So as one of the adjuncts, I know I may not be here for very long, as I have just graduated. I don't have the years of experience to be able to teach straight off the top of my head like Paul did, to come into Brake's class and tell Kat, this is what's going on. You don't see this very often, but this is what's going on. But while I'm here, I hope to continue his legacy of helping students. I'm seeing with passion students succeed, and always have